December 1852. A thin layer of snow fell over Thibodaux, Louisiana, a town unaccustomed to winter's quiet cruelty. In that rare, brittle cold, something unnatural stirred. A childless widow had gone out to gather firewood in the pale dawn, only to return with a story that silenced the entire town. She had seen a young girl, pale and trembling, standing alone among the frost-bitten sugarcane. Her hair, the color of sunlit wheat, her eyes, a blue so sharp it seemed to pierce the soul itself. No one knew her name. No one knew where she had come from. And in the days that followed, whispers began to creep through Thibodaux's streets like fog about the blonde slave girl who appeared in the dead of night, crying in an abandoned sugar house, her beauty a cruel distortion against the grim, sweaty reality of the plantations. Local legends spoke of a family long gone, of priests and orphanages that had buried their secrets deep. Yet no official record existed. Even now, the memory of her arrival seemed to hover at the edge of comprehension, a presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. Her image burned into the minds of those who glimpsed her. Every witness spoke of the same unnerving detail. She wore chains, though no one could see how they were fastened. And beneath her soft, angelic face, the townsfolk swore they glimpsed something older, something that belonged to neither this world nor any living memory. The widow's diary, rediscovered decades later in a locked trunk, describes the girl with a trembling hand, detailing the strange way shadows would twist when she entered a room. Candles would flare, windows would rattle, and the air itself seemed to tighten around her. The town's elders later recalled that the sugar house where she appeared had been a place of punishments, abandoned, yet alive with echoes of suffering. By the end of the first week, she had vanished. But the unease lingered. Some claimed to hear soft crying in the night, behind locked doors. Others swore their children had spoken to a beautiful lady with sad eyes, who warned them not to repeat what they had seen. Thibodaux would never be the same, and the town's darkest secret had only just begun to awaken. The girl's appearance could not be understood without looking into the family she had seemingly come from. Records from the early 1800s are scarce, but Thibodaux had once been home to the Blond family, wealthy, devout, and notoriously secretive. They owned one of the largest plantations in the region, but what the public saw, a veneer of prosperity, religion, and propriety, hid a darkness few could imagine. According to hidden letters discovered in a tattered chest, the Blond practiced an arcane form of control over their enslaved people. Some letters hint at obsessions with bloodlines, genetics, and beauty as a commodity to manipulate not just labor, but social power. One line, almost erased by time, reads, "She will come to us, though not yet. The blood remembers." Historians who later examined these documents noted the eerie precision of the Blond obsession with blonde hair and blue eyes, traits nearly non-existent among the enslaved population of the region. The girl could not have existed naturally in the family's world, which made her appearance in Thibodaux all the more inexplicable. Every whispered rumor suggested she was part of an experiment, a living symbol of unnatural ambition, created to impose terror, fascination, and control all at once. She was said to understand things no child should know, the movements of adults, the intricacies of human deception, even the hidden codes within prayers. By the second week of her presence, fear began to seep into the hearts of those who encountered her. Even the kindest neighbor felt watched. Her eyes, impossibly blue, seemed to measure the soul itself. No one dared speak openly of her. Churches, orphanages, and families all knew someone, somewhere, had broken an unspoken rule. But fear and superstition bound their tongues. Anyone who asked questions disappeared, claimed illness, or moved away. And the girl, it seemed, waited. On the outskirts of Thibodaux, the old St. Mary orphanage had long been a place of whispered rumors. Children claimed to see shadows moving in the corners, and older residents avoided the place at all costs. The orphanage had ties to the Blond family, a subtle, sinister influence that passed down through donations, clergy, and selective adoptions. Some documents suggest that the orphanage's administrators were not simply caretakers, but participants in rituals of control. Names of children who vanished without record appeared in ledger books alongside strange symbols and notes about beauty, obedience, and remembrance. By the time the blonde slave girl appeared in town, the orphanage had become an institution steeped in secrecy and terror, the kind of place meant to hide truths no one was meant to uncover. A caretaker's journal, found decades later in the attic, describes seeing the girl enter the orphanage late at night. She did not knock. She did not call. She simply appeared, and the air grew cold. Doors rattled, and the children, huddled in their beds, whispered that she spoke to them in words that were both comforting and horrifying. Remember, and never forget. They will try to hide you. They will try to erase you. But you must see. Historians are still puzzled by these entries. Who was she? Why did she visit the orphanage? And why do so many subsequent disappearances in Thibodaux coincide with these strange accounts? There is no straightforward answer. Only a growing unease that the past had been deliberately distorted, its truths buried beneath layers of fear and control. In the heart of Thibodaux stood St. Augustine's Church, its steeple rising like a dagger into the winter sky. The church, a beacon of morality and guidance, was also a repository for secrets that few dared confront. Among its archived confessionals were journals containing confessions never meant to be public, sins, obsessions, and acknowledgments of things that violated both faith and humanity. One such journal recounts a confession of a priest who had encountered the blonde slave girl. He described her as an impossibility, noting her unnerving calm, her awareness of events years before they occurred, and her terrifying silence when questioned. The priest wrote that she had spoken only once, whispering, "They will not see me, but I see everything." The line has haunted historians for decades. What could she have seen? What did the adults in Thibodaux try to hide from her? And why does every record of her presence end in silence, fear, or erasure? Some scholars theorize that the church itself was complicit in a system of control, documenting, manipulating, and perhaps even facilitating the girl's arrival and disappearance. By the mid-19th century, Thibodaux was a town where morality, wealth, and fear intertwined, creating a social labyrinth in which truth could be hidden indefinitely. By the third week of December, the first confirmed disappearance occurred. A young man, a laborer with no apparent enemies, vanished while walking near the river. Witnesses reported a strange glow in the fog, accompanied by a faint, melodic crying. Some said it was the girl's voice. Others insisted the air itself shimmered unnaturally. The town panicked. Searches revealed nothing. Authorities found only a note carved into a tree. She watches. She chooses. Panic grew, and whispers began that the blonde slave girl was no ordinary child. People feared her beauty, her eyes, and her eerie understanding of human nature. And with each passing night, more disappeared, leaving Thibodaux teetering on the brink of hysteria. Historians and folklorists alike now believe these disappearances were not random. They were part of a pattern, a disturbing record pointing to a power older than any document or ledger. Something had been awakened in Thibodaux, and the girl was its harbinger. After the first disappearance, Thibodaux changed. The streets, once bustling with market carts and children's laughter, became corridors of whispers. Every closed door, every shadowed alley seemed to carry secrets that were not meant for human ears. Those who dared to leave their homes after dusk swore they heard faint, almost imperceptible voices, soft cries, distant laughter, and murmurs of commands. The blonde slave girl became more than a local curiosity. She was an omnipresent force. Eyewitnesses described her appearing at the edges of perception, behind frosted windows, across riverbanks, in the lantern light flickering outside taverns. Those who glimpsed her eyes felt a sudden chill, a gnawing sense of guilt or shame for sins they hadn't yet committed. By mid-December, rumors of curses began to circulate. Farmers claimed their livestock refused to drink from certain streams. Children who wandered too close to the sugarcane fields returned silent, their eyes wide with terror, muttering fragments of phrases they couldn't fully recall. She waits, they will hide. The town's fear grew alongside a strange fascination. People avoided the orphanage and the abandoned sugar house. Yet some could not resist peering through cracked windows or following faint cries into the night. The girl's presence was no longer a singular event. It had become the pulse of the town itself, an unrelenting rhythm of dread that refused to be ignored. One January morning, A laborer repairing the foundations of an old Boudreaux warehouse uncovered a hidden door beneath the floorboards. The wood, thick with age and neglect, opened into a chamber unlike anything recorded in Thibodaux's history. Inside, the air was cold and damp, smelling faintly of candle wax and decayed paper. The room contained shelves of manuscripts, ledgers, and diaries, many describing rituals and strange genealogical obsessions. There were symbols etched into the walls, twisted, almost ritualistic versions of crosses and stars. One notebook contained an account of a blessed child of light, described in meticulous detail. Hair like gold, eyes like frozen sky, skin that reflected both purity and peril. The description matched the girl exactly. Local historians later speculated that this hidden chamber had been a secret laboratory of sorts, a place where the Boudreaux family's obsessions had moved from whispers to practice. Was the blonde slave girl born there? Was she a product of experimentation, or something older and unknowable, summoned into the world by the family's ambition? Local historians later speculated that this hidden chamber had been a secret laboratory of sorts, a place where the Boudreaux family's obsessions had moved from whispers to practice. Was the blonde slave girl born there? Was she a product of experimentation, or something older and unknowable, summoned into the world by the family's ambition? The journal entries also hinted at knowledge far beyond the town. Maps of distant plantations, coded messages referencing children with similar traits, and instructions for maintaining secrecy through fear, superstition, and manipulation. The laborer fled the room without touching anything, claiming he could still hear soft, echoing laughter as he climbed the stairs. By the time the hidden room's existence became known, many of its texts had already vanished, removed by unknown hands. What remained was enough to confirm the truth that no one in Thibodaux wished to face. There was a plan, a design, a lineage of secrecy and terror that spanned generations. On a frigid night in late January, several families reported a phenomenon that would later be called the Night of Shadows. Entire households described waking to find furniture rearranged, windows open despite being locked, and the faint impression of someone, or something, passing silently through walls. Those who claimed to see the girl described her floating, almost weightless, her hair catching moonlight, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She did not speak, but her presence conveyed warnings, accusations, and knowledge too terrible to articulate. One witness, a young mother, insisted the girl had traced invisible lines across her walls, connecting pictures of family members who had disappeared over the years. Clergymen who investigated called it a visitation, a spectral warning, but the townsfolk were unconvinced. Fear spread faster than fire, and nightly walks were forbidden. Children no longer left their beds. Adults, too, hesitated to cross the town square after dusk. The Night of Shadows left permanent psychological scars. People began keeping journals of their dreams, noting that the girl appeared even in sleep, whispering cryptic messages about betrayal, memory, and remembrance. A few, driven to hysteria, left Thibodaux entirely, but others stayed, obsessed, terrified, and unable to escape the haunting pull of the girl's presence. Research into Thibodaux's official history yielded inconsistencies. The Boudreaux family, once well documented, seemed to vanish from public records around 1849. Orphanages and churches were meticulously maintained on paper, yet first-hand accounts suggested shadowy manipulation behind every ledger, every donation, every baptism. Historians discovered conflicting narratives about the girl. Some accounts insisted she had been rescued from an orphanage. Others claimed she was never enslaved but appeared fully grown with the knowledge of the ages. Newspapers of the period mentioned a mysterious child who vanished almost immediately, leaving townsfolk shaken, but these reports were often brief, inconsistent, or later removed from archives. A historian named Eleanor Graves, writing in 1920, called the girl a living cipher, a reflection of the town's buried guilt. She noted that the girl's appearances coincided with periods of moral reckoning, outbreaks of disease, sudden disappearances, and unexplained deaths among those closest to the Boudreaux lineage. No clear resolution existed. The girl's existence seemed to straddle history, myth, and something older, a psychological and supernatural confluence that defied documentation. Each time a record seemed to clarify her story, it contradicted another. By February 1852, fear turned to desperation. A group of local men, emboldened by town meetings and whispered courage, attempted to capture the girl. They surrounded the abandoned sugar house, torches in hand, weapons ready, hearts pounding. The girl did not flee. She stood in the doorway, pale and radiant, her hair glowing in the torchlight. Those present swore that the shadows themselves twisted around her, protecting her. As one man reached out, a sudden wind extinguished torches, and an ear-splitting whisper filled the air. You cannot touch what is not yours. You cannot see what you do not deserve. The men fled, some claiming to see visions of their own sins reflected in her eyes. Others never returned. The attempt only deepened the myth, solidifying the girl's presence as both protector and judge, a being beyond comprehension, a child and a force intertwined. By spring, her sightings became sporadic, but her influence lingered. Thibodaux itself seemed changed. Windows remained shuttered, church bells tolled with a hollow resonance, and every family carried the quiet weight of fear, curiosity, and guilt. In the attic of the old St. Augustine's church, historians discovered a leather-bound ledger, untouched for decades. Its pages were brittle, ink faded, yet the words within seemed to pulsate with a sinister energy. It chronicled transactions, genealogies, and rituals tied to the Thibodaux family. But most disturbingly, it referenced a child of light, whose existence was meant to be hidden from the world. According to the ledger, the girl had been carefully placed among the enslaved population, her features deliberately preserved through generations of manipulation. The Thibodaux sought not only labor but a living symbol of control, someone whose beauty and intelligence could bend the will of others. Every entry suggested obsession, secrecy, and the belief that the child could see things ordinary humans could not. The hidden sins of families, the unspoken guilt of neighbors, the patterns of power that bound Thibodaux itself. Scholars speculate that the ledger functioned as both a record and a warning. Whoever possessed it could comprehend the town's hidden mechanisms, the church's complicity, the orphanage's dark practices, and the plantations' unspoken horrors. But it also implied that the girl was aware of the ledger's existence, and that she could choose when, where, and how to reveal herself. The ledger's last entries, dated December 1852, end abruptly. A single, chilling note reads, "She walks the streets now. She knows the hearts of men. We are not safe." This abrupt ending mirrors the girl's own appearances, sudden, brief, yet devastating. Thibodaux, a town built on secrecy, was now haunted by its own obsessions, forced to confront the fact that the past they had buried so carefully had returned in a form they could neither control nor understand. The girl's influence extended beyond folklore. Several contemporaneous accounts detail people whose lives were altered by seeing her. A young seamstress named Eloise recounted standing by the river at dawn when the girl appeared. Her eyes, frozen pools of blue, seemed to pierce through time itself. Eloise swore she saw the girl gesture toward a family home, then vanish into thin air. Those who witnessed her described a dual sensation, beauty and terror interwoven. Children felt comforted yet frightened, sensing that she knew truths too terrible for their young minds. Adults reported feelings of guilt, fear, or paranoia, often lasting months. One man noted he could not sleep for a week, haunted by visions of the girl walking silently through the town square, cataloging every sin he had hidden from his neighbors. These accounts, preserved in private letters, diaries, and fragmented reports, demonstrate the psychological weight of her presence. She was not a passive observer. She actively reshaped perception, exposing the town's buried corruption. The girl's appearances were like fractures in reality, revealing truths hidden beneath layers of social and religious control. By March, Thibodaux streets were dotted with empty homes, abandoned businesses, and families who quietly left, unable to cope with the constant gaze of something or someone beyond comprehension. The legend was growing, but it was no longer just a story. It had become a psychological contagion, infecting anyone who dared to look too closely. One child from the St. Mary orphanage, now grown, later recounted a terrifying memory. He remembered the girl appearing in his dormitory at night, her blonde hair catching moonlight through the cracked windows. She whispered words that seemed both personal and universal. "Do not forget. They will erase everything. Remember what they hide." The boy claimed she could see the very structures of control within the town, the chains of obedience, the rituals of suppression, and the hidden rules imposed by families, clergy, and social leaders. She was not just observing, she was cataloging. She was a mirror of all things concealed, a force that demanded recognition of the dark truths Thibodaux preferred to ignore. This memory, recorded decades later, aligns with other accounts of children speaking of an impossibly beautiful figure who instilled fear and awe simultaneously. Researchers suggest these recollections are crucial, offering insight into the girl's purpose: to awaken memory, to reveal hidden corruption, and to confront the moral compromises of the town. Yet even these witnesses admitted fear. Those who spoke of her often fell silent soon after, as if acknowledging her existence invited consequences. Thibodaux, a town already wary of its own shadows, now had to contend with an entity that could see through human pretense, exposing everything long kept hidden. As winter waned, a series of disappearances targeted entire households. Families connected to the Thibodaux lineage vanished without trace, leaving only cryptic messages, torn letters, or symbolic carvings behind. Witnesses described the girl as present during these events, watching silently, her presence both haunting and commanding. Local historians debate the cause. Some claim supernatural influence. Others suggest psychological contagion amplified by fear. But the patterns were clear. Each disappearance seemed linked to the town's buried sins, debts, betrayals, broken vows, and cruelty. The girl, it appeared, did not discriminate. She revealed the consequences of moral corruption, whether in small lies or systemic abuse. These vanishings fed Thibodaux's collective paranoia. Residents avoided certain streets, buildings, and families. Rumors spread that the girl was not merely a child but a force of reckoning, bound to enforce the town's buried moral code. Even those untouched by her gaze carried the weight of her presence in their dreams, in fleeting glimpses of movement, and in the cold, hollow wind that seemed to follow her. The abandoned sugar house, where the girl had first been sighted, became the focal point of terror and obsession. Researchers later found evidence suggesting the building was more than storage. It had been a repository of rituals, documents, and objects tied to the Thibodaux family's pursuit of control. Within its decayed walls, remnants of symbols, chains, and journals were discovered. The writings spoke of lineage manipulation, hidden truths, and a child of extraordinary nature, someone who could see the architecture of deception and corruption. Visitors to the sugar house reported feelings of vertigo, nausea, and intense dread. Some claimed to hear faint whispering, as if the walls themselves retained the girl's voice. Scholars theorized that the girl's early presence there bound the building to her energy, creating a space where reality and perception merged, and where those who entered confronted truths they were not prepared to face. The sugar house, once a place of labor, became a theater of memory and terror. And in the shadows of its walls, the blonde slave girl remained, a symbol of the town's unspoken history and the consequences of secrets too long concealed. Beneath the ruins of the Thibodaux mansion, historians uncovered a hidden archive, a small, subterranean chamber that had escaped both fire and flood. Inside were ledgers, manuscripts, and strange artifacts, including dolls with eerily lifelike features resembling the girl herself. The writings revealed a chilling truth. The blonde slave girl had been part of a long line of orchestrated experiments, meant to encode memory, guilt, and knowledge across generations. Each child chosen for beauty, intelligence, or defiance had been raised in secrecy, hidden from the public eye, and observed by church officials, families, and caretakers alike. Yet the girl was different. She possessed awareness, intelligence, and moral judgment far beyond human measure. She was not merely a product of manipulation. She was an active agent, capable of observing and punishing corruption in real time. The archivists noted that she had been present in towns before, leaving behind patterns of vanished families, broken legacies, and whispered fear, a cycle repeating across decades. The hidden archive, preserved in shadow, was a testament to the lengths the Thibodaux family went to control life itself. But it also confirmed that the girl was never a victim. She was a reckoning, a force beyond human morality, a mirror of all things buried in the human heart. By mid-1852, the collective psyche of Thibodaux was transformed. Families who had survived the girl's presence described living in a permanent state of tension, as if her gaze followed them, even when she was absent. Children learned to whisper prayers that no one else could hear. Adults avoided mirrors, fearing reflection of hidden sins. Every street, house, and church became an instrument of memory, a labyrinth of surveillance and guilt. Those who had once believed in divine justice now feared the girl's judgment more than any god. Scholars later theorized that her power lay not in the supernatural alone, but in her ability to force townsfolk to confront truths they could not escape: cruelty, betrayal, complicity, and fear. Letters recovered decades later described people seeing her in fleeting glimpses, on rooftops, along riverbanks, or reflected in windows. She appeared at moments of moral weakness, her presence simultaneously beautiful, terrifying, and inescapable. To those who saw her, the world itself became a landscape of shadows and secrets. In early spring, several prominent families vanished entirely. Their homes stood empty, untouched, but all personal belongings were meticulously arranged, as though someone had cataloged each life and left behind a careful record. Those who had attempted to intervene claimed the girl appeared in moments of confrontation, her voice echoing, "You cannot hide what you have built on deceit." The disappearances were not random. They were precise, targeted, and deliberate, reflecting a moral reckoning tied to the sins of the town. Historians suggest that by the end of 1852, Thibodaux had been irrevocably altered, its families fractured, its institutions hollowed, and its collective memory shaped by fear and awe of an entity beyond comprehension. The Blonde Slave Girl, it seemed, was both witness and executioner. Her beauty, intelligence, and otherworldly calm had transformed into instruments of judgment, leaving a permanent scar on the social and spiritual fabric of the town. Over the years, sporadic accounts of the girl's appearance emerged, often in unrelated towns where secrecy, corruption, or hidden abuse flourished. Witnesses consistently described the same features: blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, ethereal presence, and a silent understanding of human nature that bordered on omniscience. Some claimed to see her in dreams, whispering warnings of what humans hide from themselves. Others reported fleeting encounters in abandoned buildings or at the edges of forests. Every report shared a common thread. Those who looked into her eyes could not unsee the truth: their own sins, the lies of their families, and the invisible chains binding their communities. These reports, scattered across decades, suggest that the girl's existence transcended both time and space. She was not a person to be captured, nor a child to be comforted. She was a force, a living reminder that the past, no matter how carefully hidden, cannot remain buried forever. The Blonde Slave Girl of Thibodaux remains an unsolved mystery. Was she human, a product of unnatural manipulation, or something older, a manifestation of hidden moral and spiritual forces? The town itself carries the echoes of her presence: empty streets, abandoned houses, and the stories passed down in whispers. Her story is a cautionary tale. Beauty, innocence, and perceived power can mask profound knowledge. Secrets, no matter how deeply buried, will surface. Those who attempt to suppress or manipulate life itself may one day encounter a force beyond human reckoning. Thibodaux, frozen in memory, stands as a testament to fear, obsession, and the consequences of attempting to control what should remain sacred. And somewhere, perhaps in shadow or dream, the girl remains, watching, waiting, reminding us that truth cannot be silenced, and that some secrets, impossible as they may seem, refuse to stay hidden. The impossible secret endures.